the Washington Capitals have made a shocking move today, placing Evgeny Kuznetsov on waivers, but not for the purpose of contract termination. Now, the Blackhawks have a major opportunity here, something that could shock the NHL going ahead in the next coming days. And we're going to be talking about that here in this video, but before we do, we noticed that 78% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to get all your Blackhawks news in one spot, you're in the right spot. Make sure to hit the sub button, join us along the journey to hopefully the number 1 overall pick and Macklin Celebrini. But like I said, the Blackhawks have a major opportunity, and they can shock the NHL by doing this. First of all, we have to talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov. He's been put on waivers, but not for the purpose of contract termination. He is just going to be put on waivers to go to a new environment per Washington's GM. But this all came out, a lot of people reported on this. This is one of the bigger moves, if not the biggest, that we've seen all season. And Washington has put Kuznetsov on waivers. Earlier today, he was cleared to resume practicing, entering a follow-up care phase of the player assistance program per Elliot Friedman. Now, this is right here as well, the reasoning from GM Brian McClellan. The Blackhawks have the Capitals have put Evgeny Kuznetsov on waivers. It's all about a fresh start for Kuznetsov. Now, I don't want to say I've foreseen this coming, but it makes sense. You've seen it. Like he said, a fresh start for Kuznetsov, that's what it's all about. And we know, I'm not going to go into the details here, but we know Kuznetsov has had some problems off the ice. Some things in his past, in his career that I'm sure that he wants to forget. So we're not going to be discussing about that here today. You can Google it if you want. You'll find it pretty easy. But a fresh start, I think, is exactly what Kuznetsov needed. Now, before we get into the Blackhawks and what the Blackhawks can do about this, what do you think about it, Nick? It was kind of a shocking move. Like, why not trade him? Why not do this? But what do you think about it?
I think they're really hoping that I think first and foremost, they're caring about the player here. Like, they care a lot about Evgeny Kuznetsov. He's a guy that's done a lot for that organization, and the organization, I think, is trying to give back to him by either, A, giving him a fresh start. Maybe if he clears, he plays in Hershey. Who knows? But I think that's probably what they're hoping for. They don't really want to get rid of him, but they're caring about his mental health and everything else first and foremost. So they're saying, like, hey, if he wants to go to it, like if another team wants to claim him and he goes to a new environment where he can succeed and maybe forget about the things that have happened in the past and get out of that environment in Washington, I think they're happy with that as well. So I think that's the reason that this is happening.
Yeah, there could be a lot of speculation about it, but the thing, it's done. He's on waivers. Anybody can claim him, and that's where this comes into the Blackhawks' point of view. Chris Johnson tweeted this as well, with all the activity that we've seen on Twitter and X and whatever about Kuznetsov. He says, Kuznetsov carries a $7.8 million cap charge through the end of next season. He's owed $8 million in actual cap compensation next year, including a $2 million signing bonus. It's hard to imagine anyone claiming the former star center off waivers as a result. Now, that is true for most teams that are going to be playoff bound. Now, we do have many teams in the NHL that are also well under the cap, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks I am talking about. You can see here, this season currently, they are nearly $37 million under the cap, and that number is only going to grow next year to about $40 million right now. That's not including expiring contracts. That's about the cap raising and dead cap being erased from the books. So the Blackhawks have more than enough cap to claim Evgeny Kuznetsov, and I think they absolutely should. And I'll explain why here. And that is because they are, they're in that rebuild situation. They're also in that kind of environment that Kuznetsov is looking for, where it's a whole new environment. The old Blackhawks staff, ownership, not ownership, but, the head of this team is gone. This team has a lot of discipline now after everything that happened. They're not really taking any negative activity from anyone. They're kind of putting that all to the side, and they're being very disciplined with their players, staff, everything. I think that's an excellent spot for Kuznetsov if he's looking for a fresh start, looking for somewhere that, he can kind of forget his past, and go for a whole new section of his career, I guess you could say. And I think the Blackhawks, it also fits him because they're a rebuilding team. It kind of gets away from that Washington Capitals team that has been there but couldn't reach the end for a long time, and gives him a new opportunity at the Blackhawks, and whether or not he could be traded next trade deadline. The Blackhawks, I'm sure, will be willing to do that, willing to accept his request because he's not there super long term, and it also fits the Blackhawks' plan over the next 2 seasons. They're going to get what they can over the next few seasons, bad contracts, maybe trade for some guys that they can trade again later on until Connor Bedard needs to sign a contract. Which is at the end of Kuznetsov's deal. So a lot of reasonings, a lot of good reasons why the Blackhawks could do this deal. But Nick, what do you think about Evgeny Kuznetsov to the Chicago Blackhawks, ultimately from a waiver claim?
Well, I think it helps in a couple ways. A, like you said, there's no pressure on him. It's a completely new environment, first of all, actually. And also the fact that there's no pressure on him to produce. If he doesn't produce, that's fine. The Blackhawks don't need him to produce. They're just trying to, if they claim him, they're probably just trying to help him revitalize his career, and also helps them because of the cap, right? The Blackhawks, we know they're trying to get to the cap floor. That's why Nick Foligno is making $4.5 million. He wouldn't be making that anywhere else. He is a valuable player, don't get me wrong, but a team that's trying to contend is not going to pay $4.5 million for a guy like Nick Foligno. So, Kuznetsov making 7.8 for I think the next 2 or 3 years, that's perfect for the Blackhawks. That helps them through this stage, and it also helps a little bit because it might make them a little bit more competitive going, having a Bedard Kuznetsov 1-2 going down the middle. That actually might help a little bit and help stop frustrating Connor Bedard a little bit, give him a little bit of help.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely agree with you there. I think this season we could say is a wash for the Chicago Blackhawks right now. Yeah. Even if they do get Kuznetsov from a waiver claim, he is not playing good at all this season. That comes from his numbers, and especially his chart, a 1% WAR. That's really, really bad. You can reach there from Jay Fresh. Pretty much, not great at all this season and the past 2 seasons. And you've seen that from his play, what he's been doing, his mind, where his mind is at in the game. You can see that it hasn't been catching up to him there. So, it is a perfect spot for him to come play, like you said, get, back to normal. I don't think this will affect the draft pick this year any better than it already has. I don't think Evgeny Kuznetsov will make this team any better this season. It's, it's just a good spot for him to get back to his old self, get back to what he was at his peak in Washington, and, help him along that journey. The Blackhawks have kind of been doing that for their own system as well, trying to change their past, but not forget it. They don't want to forget what they did wrong. They don't want to forget that what they did and just sweep it under the rug, but they're acknowledging it, and they're trying to change the whole system the Blackhawks are doing, and I think that is exactly what Evgeny Kuznetsov needs at this point in his career, especially coming off the assistance program, and, they're there to help. That's exactly what the Blackhawks are doing to their own organization, so there are a lot of good reasons that I think Evgeny Kuznetsov could end up with the Blackhawks, and, like I said, a potential trade at the end of next season at the trade deadline where he would be on the final year of his contract, 50% retention. I smell a good package in return for that, if that does happen, anything like that. But obviously, the Blackhawks would have to put in a waiver claim for this to happen. I'm assuming the Blackhawks are pretty high on the waiver list. I don't exactly know what it is, but maybe it does happen. Maybe it comes to the Blackhawks, and we see the beginning of the rebuild, I guess you could say, or the peak, not the peak, but the beginning of the peak of the rebuild. But, obviously all has to happen first, and we'll see that tomorrow at, I believe, 2:30 Newfoundland time, 1 Eastern. So we'll be keeping you up to date on that. But that's all we got for this video. Let us know in the comments below what you think about Evgeny Kuznetsov going on the waivers. What do you think about the Blackhawks potentially claiming him? We'd love to hear it. But that's all we got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.